Good afternoon. Welcome to this week's AI Would Agree. And thank you, everybody, for coming along. If it's your first time joining us today, we're here every week. We're a slightly later time this week. Some people are just awkward. Sorry, Sadiq. Um, yeah, we're here every Thursday at 3 p.m. UK time. We've got a fairly international audience. What I will say is, before I kick off the show, guys, every week I ask everyone, please, if you've got any questions during the coming episode, feel free to ask them in the comments on the LinkedIn Live or on YouTube. And LinkedIn doesn't do a great job of allowing you to make the comments. I'll give it that. The interface is a bit sketchy, but the comments do come through, and we will kind of, if there's a question that I can get answered whilst we're on the show, then I certainly will. And if you're watching us back, feel free to add them in the comments anyway. We'll try and get around to answering you next time. Make it live, please. So without any further ado, I will add this week's guest into the show, Sadiq Mohammed. Welcome to the show.
Hey, hey, Paul. How you doing? Thank you. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
No problem at all. We've had some fantastic guests so far in 2023. We've got a great lineup coming for you, but good to have you on the show as well. I guess, how's your week going? Everything going well?
Yes, yeah, everything is going well. And tonight is wonderful because I'm going to go and watch my daughter play the main role in the school musical of Evita.
Fantastic.
So she's my youngest daughter, and she's
Yeah.
she's very theatrical, and she is playing the main role, and I'm very excited. I'm taking my mother, I'm taking my wife, so that should be quite a lovely
Oh,
evening.
brilliant.
Yeah, so that's been good.
Yeah.
That's going to be good. And then the rest of the week, yeah, it's just been busy. Talking to clients, existing clients that are with, outsourcers that I've worked with. And also just before this call, I was doing a pitch to a brand new prospect about some of the stuff that I do and some of the partners that I work with.
Cool. So, well, before we get into a little bit more detail of what it is that you do, question I ask everyone, Sadiq, is how did you get involved in the BPO sector initially? And was it on purpose?
I hadn't heard of BPO when I first started university, finished university, and I was in financial services, corporate finance with HSBC and with Lloyd's. And I spent about 5 years working in those two banks. And I got approached to go and work for a company called Experian, who were, who we all know who they are and what they do. And they wanted somebody who knew the financial services sector, but they were launching a call center outsourcing business called Experian Business Support Services, which later turned into reality. For those old enough and with enough gray hairs, they'll remember that. And they wanted sales directors to help launch that. And that's how I got involved in what is now called BPO. And I didn't even know what a call center was when I first got into it, and what AHTs were and what, SLAs and KPIs were, but you learn very fast.
I often draw parallels between retail and contact centers. Both industries love their acronyms. Both industries are absolutely in love with acronyms. Awesome. It's a great story. It's a great story. So that kind of leads us. So how did that end up with you then leading USmart?
Yeah. So the transition from working for Experian and then, ending up where I am today, that's a sort of a 20 year transition. I worked with Experian. I then subsequently worked with a company called Ventura, for all those people, old enough to remember Ventura, which is now Capita. And it's really interesting. I did a deal there in 1999 with Thames Water, which, believe it or not, is still there as part of Capita. So, it's there. It's stood the test of time in terms of, obviously, it's a very different deal now. I then spent 10 years working for Vertex. So if you're in the Northwest, you know who Vertex are. They were a big outsourcer, owned by United Utilities. And I did, a sales director role there not in financial services, in retail and telecoms and media. And I helped, one of the big signature deals there was I helped launch Tesco Home Phone. So if you know Tesco Home Phone, I was the guy who was sat with Tesco's, designing it and everything, and coming up with how we're going to manage the customer services and the billing and everything else. So And that again is still with Vertex, which is now Capita today, that deal. So I did that 10 years there. Then I took a uh, move into the listening company. After 10 years of Vertex, I thought it's time for a change. I was given a small stake in that business. Um, and then within a year, through, nothing that I did, and I will say that, but, the TLG company got sold to Serco. And Serco came in, and this was in 2011, and they were looking to acquire a number of businesses to expand on their BPO capability. And they were doing it through acquisition. They bought Intellinet Global Services. They bought a listening company. They bought a company in Australia, and they had their own sort of in-house BPO, patched it all together to create Serco Global Services. And we had some fantastic successes there. I was focused primarily on retail, and we did Shop Direct, Freeman's, Selfridges, Fortnum and Mason's, Ideal Shopping, Bright House. I mean, there was a lot of deals that we pulled together, and it really was Serco and Capita going at each other, from about 2011 to about 2014, 15. It was just those two giants really going at all the big transformational deals. And I was involved in some of those deals. And then 2015, Serco were exiting the private sector BPO business. Intellinet was being sold back to Blackstone, and some of the UK clients were being sold off to various different outsourcers like Webhelp and Teleperformance, because Serco decided to exit. And I made a decision at that point. I've done 20 odd years in the corporate world, and I've got a really good black book. I've got a really good network of outsourcers that I know, and I decided to go out on my own and start. And I started with USmart as a consultancy business.
Fantastic. It sounds like you enjoy solving a puzzle.
Yeah. I mean, USmart was really what I tend to do. USmart came out of, my skill being, being able to talk to customers, understanding what they're looking for, and really getting under the skin of those clients and really understanding their requirements and their problems, and then finding a solution for them. When I was in the corporate world, the solution was always the company that I worked for. This is fundamentally, it was like, yeah, we understand your problem. We can solve that problem. Now I have a bit more choice, where I will spend time with the client, understanding their issues, and I now make recommendations as to who is the right partner for them based on what their requirements are, rather than having one thing, that fixes all of their issues. I now have somewhere between half a dozen to a dozen partners that I work with whose abilities I really understand. And I then make the recommendation to the prospect.
Awesome. Yeah. And as well as the work that you do with USmart in terms of the introducing space, you are also an angel investor, right?
Yeah, I am. It wasn't something that when I was leaving university, I thought, oh, you know what, I want to become an angel investor. One, I wouldn't have known what it meant. I do now. And two, it was something that I sort of stumbled across, really. When I was at Serco as a sales director, I was looking after retail. There were other sales directors looking after utilities, financial services, telecoms, media, etc. And if an opportunity turned up and that didn't fit one of those sectors, the group sales director would say, "Who wants it?" And I would normally say, "Yeah, I want it. I'll have a look at it." And one of the opportunities that turned up was Purple Bricks. And if you'll know Purple Bricks today, they're a well-established brand, but 8 years ago they were a startup, and they were looking for a customer service center. We pitched for it, we won it, and as I got closer and closer to the founder and the chief exec, he asked me for advice and guidance around a potential investor that was going to invest in his business. That person was a guy called Paul Pinder, who I can say because it's very public information, who became his chairman and invested in his business. And Michael asked me, what did I think? And I said to him, look, if he's going to put money into your business, he's a well-established person in the city, well-established person in the world of BPO. You should definitely take his money and have him as your chairman. And that's what happened. And then at the same time, I said, well, if you're looking for investors, what's the minimum investment that you're looking for? Um, and I understood their proposition again intimately. I understood what they were trying to fix. Being a landlord myself, I had a bunch of properties that I'd purchased. I'd gone through the pain of purchasing them through estate agents and selling properties, and not really feeling like you were getting great value for fees that you were paying. Um, but so I understood, what they were fixing, and I also realized that not everybody was walking down the high street looking at estate agents' windows. They were going to the charity shops and the coffee shops and all that sort of stuff, and the high street was changing. Um, so I took a punt. I put in, I'd say, probably most of my savings into this investment, and it was worth £10 million in Pro 14 when we launched it. We started trading, and we did a number of Series A and Series B funding rounds, and then we IPO'd it in December 15 for 250 million. And it got as high as, I think, $1 billion at one point in terms of, market cap. And I thought, wow, and that's when I sort of, cashed out a sum of money, and I decided it's now time to go out on my own. And that's what I did.
It's fascinating because I think you're the only person that's come on the show that either has been comfortable with revealing that to the audience, or that actually does it in the first place. I think a lot of people kind of come on the show and they only want to talk contact centers. So it's great that you kind of open to tell us a little bit more about yourself and kind of sharing some of that other side. I guess going back a little bit to the introducer work that you do in terms of the outsourcing and offshoring, people who are watching along at home, like obviously everybody likes a bit of a story, but I guess what's the things that you see that are either coming down the line that people aren't quite aware of yet, or the challenges that you see in that industry specifically, that you get to know about because you're representing multiple parties and talking to multiple potential clients at the same time?
So, I talk to outsource partners across the world, across in the Philippines, in Turkey, in Albania, in South Africa, and the UK. And, the biggest challenges I think that they're all facing is, one, not attracting people to the industry, but I think it's more retention. So, retention is a big issue. So retention is a big issue for our clients, but retention is also a big issue, I think, for outsourcers as well, because, people now want to work in a particular way. Gone are the days when you would go into a call center all the time. People now have choices and options around hybrid working. And that in itself can present some real challenges for outsourcers, because when you're trying to create a culture within your business, it's very sometimes challenging to create a culture where you don't get to see that person. They don't get to see the culture within your business. They don't get to touch it. They don't get to feel it. They don't get to smell it. And all they ever see is a Teams call or a Teams group. Whilst that has its place, and I absolutely think it does have its place, if you want to create that sort of retention culture within your business and that culture of belonging, you can only do that, I think, through some form of touch and feel. So I think that's going to be still a big issue for outsourcers. I think some of the new geography, there's lots of new geographies now that are coming up and beginning to challenge the traditional geographies. Back in the day when I first started in outsourcing, it was India and Philippines. That was it. And it was and the American market went to the Philippines and India, and the UK market ended up generally going to India. And we also happened in the late 90s and early 2000s. A lot of people brought their work back. Now what you've got is lots of new geos up and coming. South Africa has become prevalent in the last 5 years, and I've been going to South Africa for about 12 years now. There's other geos within Africa. Egypt is a well-established geo, and there's some new geos that are sort of up and coming as well. Um, so, you know, and therefore, when you are looking at new geos, the biggest challenge that I think a lot of these BPOs will have is, can they attract the right quality and caliber of talent? Uh, and also, does that geo actually have the infrastructure to service the markets that they want to service? So, what I mean by that, if you end up going into a geography that isn't used to having call centers, but you want to service the UK market or the American market, that involves near enough 24-hour working. And in order for people to get to your centers, you need the infrastructure around that in transportation, transport hubs, restaurants, shopping centers, and blah blah blah. If those things aren't available, then whilst the geo may seem attractive, until some of those things catch up,
Yeah.
it's going to be hard to then attract the right people and retain the right people, so they keep coming back and delivering the service that you want for your clients.
It's interesting. And I guess from your perspective, you see a lot of different suppliers going in and out of those BPOs and outsourcers. Like, as somebody who knows MOJO-CX quite well, like, do you think there's a big place of disruption in that market for suppliers as well, based on kind of things that like price point as well as differentiated offerings? Is that something that you're seeing as well?
Yeah, I think more and more now, clients are sort of expect you to deliver certain things because they expect you to have people, they expect you to have properties, they expect you to deliver the SLA, they expect you to deliver KPIs. They expect you to do your PCA and expect an 80% score, and you can't pat yourself on the back because you've done that. You sort of you've done what you're meant to do. The real value add I see is these outsourcers offering, insight, continuous improvement, automation, and technology like Mojo's to sort of say, hey, here's some tech that can really help us move the needle in terms of performance. You wanted us to deliver 20% conversion rate. We're delivering 20% conversion rate, but if you want 25%, there are some great ideas around how we can deploy this better processes, better technology to move the needle. And especially with clients who are experienced outsourcers, you may get away with a first time outsourcer. You may get away with a first time outsourcer into a new geo, but more and more clients are very experienced in outsourcing, and
Yeah.
they know exactly what they're looking for. And what they're looking for is the value add, which is, a bit of a crass term because it's been said forever, but they do want that, because, and they don't want you to sit up, pat yourself on the back just because you've done 80/20. That's not what they're looking for. They sort of expect.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And that mirrors a lot of the conversations that I have. I think when I talk to like yourself, I talk to a lot of BPOs, a lot of outsourced providers. Um, the thing that I often struggle with a lot of providers with is their inability to kind of articulate how they're different from anybody.
Yeah.
And they all say the same. When I ask them the question, how are you different from your competitors? They all have the same answer, which means you go around in circles. There are a few, and we've got a few that are all sort of guests on the show where they've been able to really clearly tell me what sets them apart from the rest of the market. And
Yeah.
and don't get me wrong, even the ones that struggle to articulate their differentiators are super passionate, and I've no doubt that do a great job. It's not a reflection on them as a business, but I think that, to your point, is exactly what sets them apart. You don't need to be a yes for everyone. You need to be a yes for a specific chunk of a market, and you need to do that really well.
It's really interesting because, I see lots of people out there, who are assessing outsourced partners for you on the basis of, say, data. And data, gets you, I think, to a point in your decision making. It can tell you, if they've got 20 sites, they've got 10,000 people, they've got, great attrition rates, they've got great retention rates. These are all facts. And you can get that, from a very simple RFI. it doesn't tell you is the culture that
Yeah.
that business has within, in how they treat their people. It doesn't tell you, truly how much, how their people feel about working in that environment. And you could say, well, we've got an ESAT survey and we got this and we got that, but we all know how they can all be manipulated, you know. So you need, I always look for partners, um, who are really focused on their people, who are really focused on creating the right culture, a culture of empowerment. And that's hard to measure. That is not something that you can put on a spreadsheet and say, hey, we've empowered this many people today, or we've got this fantastic culture because, 80% of our staff will recommend, you know, their friends to come and work for us. Um, it's more of a feeling. And you can only get that by talking to these organizations, um, talking to everybody from the leader right down to, the agent and everybody in between, just to really get a sense of, what is that business about? And, are they really going to care about me, my brand, and my customers?
And I think that's why the model works so well for you is
Yeah.
is kind of you're maintaining your own reputation as well as theirs by representing those specific businesses. Their ability to perform reflects on you and your ability to do business as well. Um,
Yeah, absolutely. I don't want 150 to 200 outsourcers. I haven't got the time. I haven't got the energy. Uh, uh, and I tend to focus much more on about half a dozen providers that I can work with, and then there'll be some rotation within those as well, because I know the owners. They tend to be owner managed businesses, um, and I can really get an understanding of the owners, the founders, what culture are they trying to promote, and as a result of that, what are they, how do their people feel about it, and will they really care about if I make a recommendation, with a client I'm talking to, will they care about that person's business? Is it just about the number of FTEs? Is it all about heads, 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 or is it more about actually, I want to deliver a really good quality service, and if
yeah,
it remains at X amount of heads, it remains at that, or if we provide some insight and we actually take FTEs out, you know, it's not going to cause me pain. So I, I will look at those sorts of businesses where I'm, talking to those, owner managed businesses rather than the large corporates because they have their own, they have their own sales team, they have their own way of doing.
I think it, like when you mentioned the KPIs and metrics being gamed, that there's renowned throughout my network for being terrible at trying to give a quote and then absolutely massacring the quote. So I'm not going to try the quote, but my one version of the quote is: you give someone a metric, you give a business metrics to follow, and a disengaged employee will show you how to game that system. And it's the same the world over. It's the disengaged people that don't really want to be there that
Yeah,
will use all that creative energy that they should be using to work hard for the business. They will show you the way to game that system.
totally agree.
You see it in marketing teams, you see
Yeah,
it in teams, you see it in BPO, you see it in retail. It's fascinating. It's like I love watching the creativity of those people in how they find ways to manipulate the system
yeah,
because you're asking them all questions.
yeah. And you haven't got the right culture in your business. You're not rewarding them for actually, you're rewarding them for the different things rather than rewarding, making sure that they are rewarded in line with how you are rewarded and in line with what your client is trying to achieve.
Yeah.
Uh, so no, I have a quote, which is, don't outsource your mess for less. And I say that I said it, I used it today on a pitch client. And I said, look, whatever you hand over, it ain't going to be perfect. Don't expect your outsource partner to start flying before they can crawl and walk, and so set your expectations correctly, and we do that through the engagement process. And I do that through the contracting process. Set your expectations correctly. And manage your executive team correctly, because they will have your exec team, in the client will have expectations of, well, why isn't this working after 2 weeks? Well, that's because it takes 8 weeks or 6 weeks to get people up to, up to a particular glide path.
Yeah.
Why are they not doing 100% or SLA, blah, blah, blah? Because it's never going to happen. So it's all about managing expectations as well with it.
And I think, yeah, I
Right.
think there's an element in there of, like some people might disagree with me, but like customer experience isn't about delivering an individually great performance now and again. It's about delivering consistently over and over against expectations and managing
Yes.
those expectations.
Yes.
If you look at the likes of IKEA, we've kind of had this on the show before. IKEA don't deliver an outstanding individual customer service. You've got to go and find your own furniture, put it on the trolley that doesn't go very well, get it to the counter, get it to your car, fit it in your car. But they're amazing at what they do because that's what people expect when they go there. They set that expectations. There's no holes, no bars, and they deliver against that repeatedly, day in, day out, and it's their bread and butter. And I think businesses that are out there, like if you're trying to deliver an individually unique experience as a one-off, all that does is it falsely raises the bar, and from there on, it's expected behavior.
Yes.
So if you can't consistently meet it, probably don't do it.
Yeah. And businesses now, especially in the sectors that we work in, are dealing with really well-informed customers who want to talk to you across a multitude of channels, have a reasonably high expectation of the service that they want, but don't want to be, messed around. I think good CX sometimes is when you ring up and you want to speak to somebody and they take you through all the DPA. We have fantastic bots that do DPA all day, every day, and we have IVRs that do, and the biggest, lot of frustration that I hear is from consumers is, why am I having to give my DPA again? Why am I being transferred and doing my DPA again? So there are simple things that businesses can do to really fix some of those issues. Simple, these are basics. And I think customers' expectations would be met. As you say, you'd be seen to be providing a fantastic CX because what, I've called up or I've written to you, you've responded in a timely manner, you've given me the information that I wanted first time round. Yeah. Or you've transferred me to XYZ and they didn't ask me to do a DPA again and explain what my issue was. The biggest frustration for a lot of consumers is they get
Yep.
messed around and passed from pillar to post. And that's because clients have broken processes, broken systems. And then they outsource all of that. I think, it's all going to be fixed. Well, it's not.
No.
All you're doing is you're moving your mess over the wall
It's tower and sand. Yeah.
for some savings.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, exactly that. Exactly that.
it's about managing expectations.
Well, look, I've really enjoyed the chat, but just before we wind things up, just to go back to your personal story again, Sadiq. I guess one thing that I wanted to ask you that I haven't really asked anybody else on the show yet, but I might start making it a regular question, is what are you most proud of?
Wow.
Use that whichever way you want to take it, whether that's personal, professional, something in between.
So work is work, business is business. It's great. I love what I do. I'm an independent guy. I'm at a record year last year. So yeah, all is good. But really the thing that I'm really proud of, for me, it's my daughters and my wife. They are my rocks. My daughters are growing up to be young, smart, old women. One is in a job. One is just finishing off her law degree. And one, as I've said to you, is quite theatrical. They're all great, and they're off on their journeys. So they make me really proud every day. And what I do, why I get up in the morning, is for them. I'm also proud of some of the other stuff that I've been involved with. You may remember, I think, Paul, last year I was involved in building a school out in Pakistan.
Yeah.
I actually took my mother and my wife to the opening of that school. I was involved with 3 other friends. The 4 of us were involved in majority funding it. We built a school for 350 kids. who didn't have anything really. Um, and these are kids from primary school all the way to sort of high school. Um, we have a 50-50 split between boys and girls because girls' education in some of those parts of the world is just doesn't exist. I don't need to talk about Afghanistan, blah, blah, blah. Um, so for me, being a father of three daughters, that's really important. Education is really important to me. And in some parts of the world that doesn't happen. So I'm involved with that. Um, uh, I've got involved in another charity called Human Appeal. And if you check out Human Appeal, they are again are involved in a lot of work with refugees. They're recently helping flood victims in Pakistan as well. And I'm going out next week. We're helping build. I'm building two homes for people whose homes have been sort of flooded. And then the final thing that I'm beginning to do now is I'm looking at an outreach program. So I'm working with Human Appeal again, where you actually deliver the aid yourself. So we're looking at like Lebanon and Jordan, and going on a call tonight, and a number of us will be organizing a trip to actually to some of these refugee camps.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to make sure the aid gets to where it needs to get to. Um, they have these outreach programs where you can go in a safe, controlled way to deliver aid, and me and my wife are looking at. So these are the things that are important. Business will always be there. I'll always have clients, hopefully ringing me. God willing, that they'll always be ringing me, and I have some fantastic outsource partners that I work with. Whose company I really enjoy and whose businesses I'm really enjoying watching grow. Overall good.
Fantastic. Very humbling to hear that, Sadiq. Well, congratulations on all that. And if you want to put some links for the charities in the comments, you're more than welcome to kind of pop those in for people to have a look at as well.
Yeah, no, we'll do. No, absolutely.
Well, look, fantastic to have you on the show, Sadiq. It's been very different to some of the guests I've had on previously. So thank you for shaking things up a little bit, and welcome back on the show at some point in the future as well. Be good to catch up.
Maybe when I've done some of these charitable things and the outreach programs and etc., maybe come back and talk to you about my adventures there.
Awesome.
Right.
If you've been watching along on the show today, thanks very much for coming along and watching the episode. And hopefully we'll see you again next week at our regular time slot at 3 p.m.
Thank you.
I would agree. Thanks, Sadiq.